wheat plant grows is the subject of this video. The information presented would apply to wheat production throughout the United States and even the world, with a couple of minor exceptions. First of all, we will be discussing winter wheat, which requires vernalization. Spring wheat would not require that vernalization. Second, we'll be discussing wheat grown for both forage and for grain. This requires that the farmer plant earlier, using higher seeding rates, and would expect to get more forage production in the fall than he would if he were growing the wheat for grain only. So let's see how a wheat plant grows. Every farmer hopes to have a nice looking wheat field like this. There's a lot that goes into producing a good crop of wheat. First of all, there are many management decisions a farmer has to make, and then he has to depend on the weather to cooperate. Two particular events have sparked my interest in developing this video. First of all, many producers have had difficulty determining when the wheat is in growth stage 8 to 9, which is the time that's appropriate for application of the most popular foliar fungicide that's being used in Oklahoma right now. And then second, I've learned that many people have trouble determining when the wheat plant has begun to joint. And it's important for wheat producers to be able to identify when wheat begins to joint, because it's at that time that they need to make a decision of whether they're going to pull cattle off of wheat pasture to get both maximum grazing potential and maximum grain yield.
We're looking at different stages of seed germination here, and we'll start with just looking at a seed. And the two important parts of a seed are the major part of the seed, which is the endosperm, and then if we look real close right at the very tip, we see just a little bump that basically represents the embryo or the little seedling within the seed.
The embryo, as we see in this diagram, contains a miniature wheat seedling, including the coleoptile, several leaves, the shoot apex, radicle, and the root cap. Now if we look at a whole diagram of a wheat seed, we can see that each of these parts in the embryo is so small that generally we think of the seed as only containing the embryo and the endosperm.
And then these are seed that have been soaking in water for about 12 hours. You notice it's the same, it's the same seed we started with, only they've swelled considerably. And if you look real close on this one, the embryo has started to just started to break through the surface of the seed coat. So within 12 hours, or certainly by 18 hours, usually that embryo has already started to grow. The first thing to emerge as the seed begins to germinate is the radicle, and the radicle is this part of the root that usually goes straight down, and then soon after it emerges, the two lateral branches off the radicle, or adventitious roots, that are still part of the primary root system, will form. And then a little bit later on, the coleoptile will begin to grow. And within this coleoptile, we have the first young leaf that's just beginning to grow also. The coleoptile is a protective coating over those leaves and protects the new leaves as the plant makes its way up through the soil until it gets to the soil surface. When the coleoptile reaches the soil surface, it quits growing, and the first leaf will break through the tip of the coleoptile.
Recently, it's been discovered that as the soil temperature increases, the maximum length that the coleoptile will grow to decreases. For example, as we dig here, we discover 3 seeds which were placed nearly 3 inches deep in the soil, and the coleoptiles reached the soil surface. This wheat was placed in soil that was 75 degrees Fahrenheit or cooler. In another example, we look at wheat that was planted in soils where the temperature was approximately 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Even though the seed were planted about 1.5 inches deep, the coleoptile only grew to 3/4 of an inch, never reaching the soil surface. When this happens, the first leaf grows through the tip of the coleoptile while it is still below the soil surface. Generally, this leaf will not reach the soil surface. And this is especially true if there has been a rain between planting and the time emergence occurs. When the coleoptile doesn't reach the soil surface, we get plants that one of my students calls appropriately yellow accordion leaf plants. And you can see in this picture why he calls them that. The seedling stage begins as the first leaf emerges from the soil, and then it ends as the first tiller begins to emerge from the leaf axils. We'll first look at a 2-leaf plant, and we'll see how systematically the leaves and tillers emerge. Well, the seed was attached right here, and then the coleoptile grew up, and then the first leaf coming out from where the coleoptile was. And so this is the first leaf, which is fully expanded. And then the second leaf is emerging now, and it's only about half of its size. If we take a closer look at a leaf, we can learn more about what it really is made of. So we'll take this leaf off and then we'll look at it close up.
When we think of a wheat leaf, we usually think just of this flat blade part that it grows away from the plant as it grows. But a leaf really is made up of a combination of the leaf blade and the leaf sheath. And the leaf sheath was the part that we just pulled off from around the tiller. There's an area where the leaf blade joins the leaf sheath that's called the leaf collar. And as we watch a leaf grow, we can tell when it's fully expanded by looking for this leaf collar area. If that leaf collar hasn't appeared yet, that leaf's not fully expanded.
During the seedling stage, the primary root system continues to develop. The entire primary root system results from branching and growth in length of the radicle and the 2 branches from the radicle which occurred early during germination. Roots from the primary root system can grow as deep as 4 feet into the soil, thus forming quite an extensive root system. Well, we start with the seed right here, and then the first thing that was emerged was the coleoptile, and this is what's left of what was the coleoptile at one time. And then this was the first leaf coming up over here, and then the second leaf is on the opposite side of the plant, and it's this one. In this particular plant, the third one's over here, and again you notice they're on opposite sides. The first one being on the left side of the plant, the second one on the right, the third one on the left again, and then we've got the fourth leaf that's partially emerged again. Then out of the leaf axil, this leaf was looked like this one did before this tiller came out, but out of this leaf axil from the first leaf is where the first tiller appeared, and this is the beginning of the first tiller showing up here. If we plant the wheat deep enough, an internode develops between the seed and the crown, which is called a mesocotyl, or sometimes is referred to as the subcrown internode. The remnant of the seed is located here, and then we've got the mesocotyl, which is an internode between the seed remnant and the crown. And here we've got the crown with the crown roots and the tillers attached. And you see here there are several crown roots. The mesocotyl does separate the primary root system from the crown root system, and the crown roots all come off from the crown, grow from the crown. The tillering stage begins as the first tiller emerges from the leaf axil, and it ends as the plant begins to joint. So the first tiller usually emerges when the plant has 3 to 4 leaves on it. And a tiller in a wheat plant or any grass is just a branch. So it's, instead of calling it a branch, we call it a tiller. This tiller is attached all the way down here at what we call the crown. And I'll pull back this first leaf and try not to disturb the plant enough that we can see that as I pull that all the way back, you can see now that that first tiller is attached all the way down here at the base. And all of the tillers that will occur on this plant will all come from down here at what we call the crown of the plant. As a tiller grows from the crown, it is protected by a structure similar to the coleoptile that's called the profil. Once the profil gets up to where the leaf sheath ends and it hits light, it stops growing and the first leaf emerges from that tiller.
The leaf profil that is the protective covering that protected the first leaf of this tiller as it was growing up through the leaf sheath. And the profil looks like it stops right about here, and the remainder of this tip is the new leaf that is just broken through the profil and will now expand to produce a full leaf. Occasionally we have a plant which has a tiller which originates from the node where the seed was attached rather than at the crown. Such a tiller is called the coleoptile tiller. This is a plant where the seed had been attached right here, but the remnant of the seed coat and all has fallen off. But you'll notice that it does have a tiller that is attached at that point. And again, in this picture, if you look real carefully, you can see that the inner node that's between where the seed was attached and where the crown was, right here, the white area that shows through. And then you notice that all the rest of the tillers are attached at this point at the crown. I'll go ahead and pull off this coleoptile tiller, and then we'll pull off each of the other tillers and demonstrate where they were attached. So let's get the coleoptile tiller out of the way. And then this is the main stem here. So all the rest of these tillers branched off from that main stem. And as I get rid of those, you can notice that, I guess it works better if I pull it this way. They're attached right down at the crown. Here's the first one. This one breaking off right down there where looks like where the roots come out. And here we have another leaf in the tiller, a pretty young tiller that's in it. It's that leaf axil. And if we pull that on back, we find out again it's attached right down there at the crown. And we'll go ahead and pull that one off. And if I'm lucky, we'll just play games and see if there's another tiller inside this leaf. So if we pull it back and we go all the way down, yes, sure enough. Pull it off and we'll see that right down here at the very base, there's a real small tiller that's just started to expand. Here we've got a plant that has one tiller located right here and 4 or 5 leaves on it. And you see here the crown roots that have just started to form, the little nubs on both sides, and then there's one back behind. In this plant we've got the crown roots that are 2.5 to 3 inches long. There are 3 of them. And if you look real close right here, you can see the little nubs where there are some more that are starting to grow. And then we've got on this plant 2 tillers, the first one that was easy to see, and then one right in here that's not so easy to see.
On this plant we've got a couple of tillers, this being the second one right here, and it's fairly small. And, here you can see the primary root system, and we can even see the seed remnant that's still there. And on this one we've got one of the crown roots that's a couple of inches long, and it's grown out. But we've also got these two short pieces that are just nubs where the crown roots tried to grow out. They hit either dry soil or compacted soil and quit growing. And these roots will not begin to grow again until you've got a rain or something that alleviates whatever prevented them from growing initially.